Hi and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm your host. I'm the one who's always here talking to you. I'm Jason Walker, and we're going to be looking at a oolong tea today. This is a more darkly, richly oxidized type of, or roasted type of tea. So this is what we're going to be experiencing. There are so many different kinds of teas. Some, I don't know there's been an official count. It's in the hundreds, if not thousands. And so there's lots for us to look at together. We're going to be using a clay teapot today. This is probably 3 to 4 ounce size, and our bowl is, or our cup rather, is just big enough to really hold it. So we have a DaHongPao, which is a Chinese term or Chinese words for big red robe. Got our teaspoon here. Go ahead and go up to future tastings, or our link right above for join a tea tasting, so that you can find teas that you like, that you want to taste with us. Okay, so I've got about, if you press this out, it'd be about around half of a tablespoon, or a teaspoon rather, teaspoon. I'm going to get out about another half to 3/4. And the general rule of thumb, I happened to read that Roy Fong was sharing this with some of his readers at his Imperial Tea Court and the Imperial Tea Court blog. You want enough so that you've covered the vessel, the bottom of the vessel that you're using, whatever it may be, plus, he says, plus a third. I give it good coverage, and that looks good. So that's covered the bottom of our pot here. Our water has been brought to a boil, and so you can add your water very shortly after the boil. You could get it up to a rolling boil, because with a DaHongPao you can use a little bit more heat on it. Okay. The other thing, I'm not going to do it today. I could get into a more elaborate, ornate type of gong fu style, but a lot of people will heat their pot first. And this, by getting that stable temperature, a nice warm pot, that can bring out more flavor and nuance to your tea. We're going to do just fine with this. I've used this clay teapot for DaHongPao before, and it gives good results. Okay, so this particular tea is from RJTeahouse. RJTeahouse can be found through eBay. And this is their, as we said, their Wuyi, which is the Wuyi mountain area. Their DaHongPao, big red robe. This is, let's see, what else do we have here? This is an 08 harvest. You can find 16 grams for $1.99, just under $2 there. But don't get too excited, because 16 grams is only about, just a little over half an ounce, really. So good for a sample, but if you want more, you're going to want to look to a larger size selection there. Okay, let's talk about this tea and go through the 3 areas: the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. One of the things that I enjoy about a good DaHongPao is those characteristic very toasty type aromas that come off, and there's a definite type of Cheerio type of note coming off, combined with a dried oak log. I mean, it's got some of that sweet sappiness to it, but it's been concentrated. It's dried out. It's got a good seasoned smell to it as well, and that's what you're really getting off of this. I think it reminds me of, like, you have a log, it still has the bark on it, and you pull off a piece of that bark, and you smell the aromas that are released between that bark and the exposed inner wood there. There's those kind of woody type notes coming out, combined with that toasted Cheerio smell. Before I put this away permanently, I should pull out a few of these leaves. Just briefly note our color and shape. You know, you've got that kind of, like a bister type of grayish brown deep color that you're finding in most of these. fairly standard in their, I mean, nothing exceptional in the way it's been rolled. I mean, they're crinkled up mostly along the middle vein of the leaf so that you've got longer pieces. This piece is, looks like half, 3/4 of an inch, I guess. Okay. Let's get to our pour now. And we got a nice tea towel out so that we can catch any drips. Using a cup, I'm using a cup that has a white inside so that you have a clear point of reference. You can see what the colors, what the liquor looks like inside a cup. I'm going to swirl this around because there's usually a little bit more intense flavors at the bottom, and you want to get that up and into your cup. So, general rule, or a rule that several people will follow as far as pouring from a teapot, it works better with it can work better, I should say, with a tea like a DaHongPao or an oolong. You can leave a little bit at the bottom, and then next time when you re-steep, you have that intense flavor that was still remaining in that little bit of tea still sitting at the bottom. Okay. You don't have to let that cool for a moment. I can tell just by the touch that's going to be quite warm. So let's take a look at our wet leaf here. We've still got some water floating in there. Still getting that kind of warm toasted Cheerio note in there. There's also this kind of tanginess. It's like a sour plum or a green plum. There's something in there you can tell it's going to have some bite to it, which is it's nice. It's zesty. It's tangy. It's got some refreshing qualities to it. I'm going to use my spoon because we still have some very hot moisture in there to fish out a few of these leaves. Okay, a little bit of stem in a leaf, not really representative, at least I hope not, for this particular tea. Okay, I've got a nice leaf here. It is unfurled, nice fuller size leaf. It's got a bit of thickness to it. It's tender. It's a little more tender than some of the other DaHongPaos that I've experienced. But that's a nice full size leaf that you see there. We just kind of press that in there. And I'll put this on a white background actually, just a moment. Put it down in here so that we've got a nice white background to place it on. And that way you see where my photo is coming from. So it's from that, and it's from that. And let's fish out a couple more, shall we? Ever so quickly. There we are. A little bit of water dropping out of there. Okay. So that one's not going to unfurl quite that easily because it's a little bit ragged. These leaves may not have gotten the most tender, loving treatment of all the leaves out there. So parts that I thought may have been a ball leaf, but evidently not. Alright, so that takes care of our wet leaf. Set that there, get this out of the way. Now we come to our liquor. Give it a nice smell. Still, same Cheerio, aged or dried firewood type of smells coming off. My hat goes off to Timothy Shu, or Toki, as he may be known in the blog community, from the Mandarin's Tea Room, for writing an article recently, past month or two, about how when you're tasting some teas, if you leave them to sit in your mouth, they react with the saliva and that the enzymes in your saliva break that tea down and release a lot of the sweetness of the tea. What I found right off from the tip of my tongue, I mean, the smoky toasted element does seem to travel kind of along the sides towards the back of the mouth. But what also hit me at the very initial point was that sweetness on the tip of my tongue, also pleasant. Okay, silken in the body, light, smooth, not a heavy astringency, not really any astringency, off-putting type of astringency to really detect. What else? Still having that kind of woody, toasted note. Moving away from a Cheerio to more towards almost kind of smells of like cherry wood type of smells. But so it does have an indication of some sweetness, some kind of, well, I'm going to let it cool off, because a lot of times when it cools a little bit, you get more of that tangy note to it. But the body so far does stay with a kind of toasted feel in your mouth. You still get this kind of coating, this silken coating as well, and it favors towards the honey nut part of the Cheerio. That it does have that sweetness with that roasted or toasted type of element. Just initially, smells have become a little bit sweeter, a little bit more towards a baked apple type of smell. Yeah, as it's cooled, it keeps that sweetness tends to develop a little bit more. I'm looking for that tanginess, and it's more subdued. There is some tanginess to it. It's a little more subdued than some of the other teas that DaHongPao types that I've tasted. So that means when I kind of put all this together, pleasant looking, pleasant smelling, dry leaf, characteristic aromas there. Wet leaf, a little bit tender, a little bit more tender than some of the others I've seen, but also a little bit rougher around the edges than some of the leaves I've seen. As far as the liquor goes, did have a good texture. It has some nice sweetness to it, some nice, especially on the tip of the tongue, initial tasting. Aftertaste carries that kind of honeyed type of note to it. Again, toasted elements there. Not as much of the tangy as I've detected in some. So that means it has a little bit less diverse profile, a little bit less nuance to notice and appreciate. That's why I would give this tea still quite a good quality. I'm going to give this tea an 89, needing a little bit more of that tanginess to come out a little bit sooner, a little bit to, as it cools there. One more shot. Yeah, still not as much. So that's why we give it an 89. A lovely tea to try. Again, this is from RJTeahouse. This is their DaHongPao, and we looked at it here together at Walker Tea Review. Next time, join us for a pu'er.